that's what I just started doing. Like, okay, I'll never say I'm nervous. I say I'm excited. I don't have to compete. I get to compete. Like, just those little things make such a difference that people don't even realize. And obviously, like, it's like buying into it too. For like anything, like you have to believe in it.
Right.
Welcome to the Dr. JJ Thomas Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dr. JJ Thomas Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. I have one of my favorite people and athletes here, Amanda Leve. Thanks for joining us, Amanda.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So I want to give like a very brief intro. I mean, once I start talking to Amanda, you'll see how just the depth of her awesomeness comes out. But just a very brief introduction of Amanda and who she is as an athlete. For those of you that may not be familiar with her, Amanda is one of the best Jiu-Jitsu competitors really in the world, especially in this lifetime, in this era. She's competed in ADCC Worlds, I think it was 2019, won first in multiple IBJJF competitions, just recently won ADCC East and is about to go compete to ADCC West and hopefully maybe even get an invitation out to Worlds again this year. So, but beyond that, the reason Amanda is such a successful athlete, really, in my opinion, is just the depths of who she is as a person, how she holds herself, both in her training and just in her everyday life. And that's really why I wanted you to come on.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so flattered.
So I thought if we could, so as you know, this podcast is mostly directed towards clinicians, but we do have a lot of other non-clinicians who watch it. And so I just think your whole story is, I think, really awesome and interesting. For the physical therapy side of things, I want to talk to those guys a little bit about kind of your journey of how you got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and if you could take me back even to like when you first started in Jiu-Jitsu. And
yeah, absolutely. So basically I was just like a super active kid when I was younger. I was like such a weirdo. I would do like push-ups and like sit-ups like during commercial breaks when we were watching TV for no reason. I don't know why, but and then I was always like a competitive kid, never liked to lose. And so my dad originally signed my brother up for classes for jiu-jitsu, and he saw them doing push-ups and stuff. He's like, oh my gosh, Amanda would be so great for this. And he would always watch the UFC in hindsight too. So yeah. I did my first class, and I don't even remember. I don't even want to say like I loved it, but I just like enjoyed it. Yeah. And I would just like I just continued to win. My dad is also like it was one of those dads everyone talked about, like, oh my God, he pushes his kids too hard.
Yeah.
So he
How old were you?
I was 11.
Okay.
So he threw me in my first tournament, and like I was only 4 months in, and most people don't compete until they're like a year in at least. So I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and he like put me in my first tournament. I went out there, I lost in 15 seconds. I cried. I wanted to go home. And he's like, please just stay for one more. And, he had me stay for one more. I won my next one. And I just like, that is one thing I will remember is just like feeling like so accomplished, right? You get your hand raised. Like, it just feels so good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is like awesome. So I was just like addicted to that feeling ever since.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's just like so crazy, right? Because it's just like this 1 second of you getting your hand raised, and it's just like such a feeling, right?
I bet, as you tell that story though, like I feel like the win is sweeter after the loss.
Yep.
Right? Like
yes.
I feel like it's almost so perfect that you had that loss first, and because you persisted. And that's actually exactly what I think, one of the things that I think probably makes you one of the most elite athletes I've ever worked with is that you don't, struggles are just a stepping stone for athletes like you, in my opinion. So I love that.
Yeah, you're right. 100%. I actually never even looked at it that way. So I actually like that you said that.
But thanks.
Like basically just, again, like it was just like a 1 second. I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I want to keep doing.
Yeah.
So then I just kept competing after that. There wasn't really many girls at that time. But the two girls that were there, they were older than me, and they would just kill me. Like every match I had against them, I just like destroyed. And then there was like, as we got older, there was just one day where like the tide changed.
Yeah.
And then that was like another feeling of like, just like such accomplishment. Like finally I'm beating you guys.
Yes.
Like how great this is, right? Like the full circle moment. You guys used to
beat up on me.
Beat me up every match. And now I'm a full circle moment. But yeah, and then I went against a bunch of boys too, which also made me so much more tough. Because like, you know, I know it's kind of sucks being a boy, like going against a girl, because like, oh, if you win, you beat a girl, but if you lose to a girl.
Yeah.
So I give all those boys a lot of credit for dealing with going with me. But you know, some of them would go like rough too, and like, you know,
you're in the ring, like
yes.
yeah, exactly.
So it definitely made me more tough and aggressive in the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then going towards like MMA, I eventually wanted to do MMA. Like that was like always the goal for me eventually. Like when I was 13, I watched Cyborg versus Gina Carano, and I like remember it was like the first big women's MMA fight. My dad was like super excited for it. We were like on the couch watching it, and after watching it, I'm like, okay, now I want to do this.
Here we go.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Like it's level up,
cool.
level up.
Yep.
What age was that?
13.
Okay.
So then I always did striking on and off, and then always competed in jiu-jitsu. So that's basically how I just started.
And your MMA experience, I know we were just talking before we started airing, like how, first of all, her MMA record was great also.
Undefeated.
Undefeated.
But I know, but it was only like 2 fights, which sucks.
but we were just talking about how your MMA background really helps, even in jiu-jitsu, right? Like just, even if it's just the fear factor.
Yep. I know. And it's like funny because I can't fight MMA anymore because of like, they found like an aneurysm on an artery in my brain. So it basically stopped me from fighting MMA, but I refuse to change my Instagram name from like MMA because I feel like it's such an advantage being an MMA person in jiu-jitsu because you're so much more scrappy. Like I just always think like, okay, like MMA people, like not that jiu-jitsu people aren't tough, but like MMA people, it's just a different toughness.
Totally.
So I'm like, I refuse to change my name until like I'm done fighting altogether because I'm like, I want to be in that MMA mindset. Like I'm tough.
I love it.
Yes, I'm
scrappy. Yeah, you should.
Yes.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah, you guys see what I'm talking about? Like the athletes like Amanda this is exactly right. Like every ounce of everything has a purpose. That's what I see from the sidelines of watching you is like your training has a purpose, your recovery has a purpose, your name on Instagram has a purpose. Like all of it is built around your ability to succeed. And really it's goal driven. And the other piece of that is like your goals, you're constantly seeking new goals.
Yep. It's
so cool. I mean, it's so cool. And I was also talking to Amanda before we started here about like what this podcast is about. And really like, yes, I get to talk to really cool athletes at another level and sit down and just, like we're having coffee, but also for clinicians out there, what I really want to show is like this level of excellence. I know Amanda's very humble, so I don't want to I'm not trying not to gush too much, but the truth is this type of excellence doesn't happen on accident and it happens with a purpose. And you're just the epitome of that in my opinion.
Thank you. I
yeah.
appreciate that.
So with that note, like knowing that everything you do is purposeful, tell me a little bit about maybe some, like that must have been a struggle, the news to not being able to continue to compete.
Yeah. So like with that, it was such an eye opener because I felt like I lost my identity, which sounds like so crazy, right? Like I just felt like a piece of me is just gone. I still don't feel like the same, right?
Yeah.
And like a year has just passed since I found out, and I'm like, damn, it still hurts the same. Just like, and everyone's like, oh, you'll get better, blah, blah. You can go back to jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, you don't understand how happy I was when I could tell a jiu-jitsu promotion, like, oh, I can't compete with you guys because I have an MMA fight coming up. Like, I was waiting for that moment so long, and I finally had it. Yeah. And then it was just like gone, just like that. So it definitely like hit hard right when I found out because it was almost like a death in the family. Like, my mom's crying, my dad's crying, my siblings are crying.
Yeah.
Like, because everyone sees the dedication. Like, again, like Instagram, you can post all you want, but like at the end of the day, like, no, I don't even actually really post. I'm so bad with social media. Yeah. I'm so bad. And I'm like, 2024, I was supposed to get better at social media was my New Year's resolution. But like, my family sees all the hard work I put in, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so like it was almost like everyone collectively just felt the sorrow.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm like lucky that I always had such a great support system to begin with. Like even my boyfriend, like when I was getting ready for like fights, and even now he's still like he'll meal prep everything for me, and I just take it in the morning and go. You know what I mean? So like I am so lucky that the support system I have.
That is awesome.
So yeah, so just dealing with that was like it was definitely like a reevaluation of like, okay, like what am I gonna do now?
Yeah.
So that's why I ended up doing East Coast trials this last October, because I'm like, okay, like I haven't felt the fire to compete in so long because it was the MMA was taken away from me. So I'm like, all right, let me just hop in this jiu-jitsu tournament. I'm feeling good. You know, maybe it'll like spark a fire back. And a little fire came back, but like it's still not as intense as I wanted it to be, like I had for MMA. But yeah, it was just like a shock and like an eye opener to, you know,
have to change. Like
exactly.
you were on this path and you were conquering.
Yes.
Like you were like, you could see the fruit, everything come to fruition. And then all of a sudden, I know, I like your analogy of it being like a death in the family, because I feel like that's what I see. That's what I can imagine for you. And that's what I still see is like, it's not, I think with any death in our lives, it's not, sometimes it never gets easier. Like it just hurts a little less later on, right? Like, but we can hopefully find, it sounds like you're working on finding ways to still fulfill that.
100%. And then it was like cool. It's cool that I'll be able to work on different things now. So like I started swimming, I started cycling. So I'm like, I always wanted to do those things, but I never had time to do those things because I was so focused on MMA and it takes up so much of your time. Yeah. So it's cool that I'm able to like expand my horizons. Yeah. So I am enjoying that. I will say.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What about, so back to the support thing, because I think it's awesome that you brought that up, because I think that is one of the things that that sets a lot of really high level athletes apart, is that they do have great support. And so you mentioned your boyfriend. What other like mentors or support people have been kind of pivotal in your growth?
So definitely my parents, because they were total opposites, right? So my mom was like oh, my poor baby. Like if I lost, like, oh, it's okay. And then my dad was just like, you know, a hard ass. Like, you know, I could lose to like the most muscular kid as a teenager, and my dad would be like, arms folded behind the ref's table, just shaking his head in disappointment. And I'm like, I don't know what to say.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, like, and I always love telling this story. So, like, I'll give you an example of how crazy my dad was. I played softball too growing up, and honestly, I probably would have pursued softball if I never found jiu-jitsu, because I loved it so much. Okay. And I was really good at it. And we lost a championship game. This is in grade school too, so I'm like in 8th grade. So we lost a championship, and it was nothing like that. Like I had a good game, but you know, obviously softball's like a team thing, and that's another reason why I like jiu-jitsu, because or like MMA, you're relying on yourself. Yeah, it's an individual sport. It teaches you full accountability. You can't blame anybody else 100%. But yourself. Yeah.
And you also can control yourself. Like you can control what you did leading up to that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I always tell people, I'm like, put your kid in jiu-jitsu, wrestling, because it's full accountability. Like you're out there, you either put in the work or you didn't. And then it's also like, maybe it was your day, maybe it wasn't your day. Right. It teaches you just full accountability. 100%. So anyway, so we ended up losing. They give us the second place trophies. Then everyone's like, oh, let's go get pizza after, right? My dad, we're walking, and he goes, points to the trash. He goes, throw that, second place away. So what did I do? I went over, and I was like all for it too. Like there was no, I had no.
You're like, that makes sense to me, Dad.
Yes. Yeah. Threw it in the trash, and everyone went to go get pizza, and we went home.
Oh my God, so, that is hilarious.
Yeah. So then I had a balance between the both of them, right? So definitely them, my boyfriend, and then. I was lucky growing up. I was the only girl usually and only kid in like these adult men classes, right? So I've been to like 5 different schools probably over, a course of 16 years of, grappling. Yeah. And I always had guys that were so supportive. Like I never had really bad experiences with men. Yeah. The way they treated me, they always treated me like I was like their little sister, and in the long run, it helped me so much. It made me want to stay in the sport. Yeah. And it taught me so much in general, because like they were, so willing to give me information. I had so much information just at my fingertips with the schools that I went to. So
that's awesome.
The amount of men that are in the sport that treated me well and kept me going is so
cool.
amazing. Yeah,
that's cool. It's fun to see. What about the I remember when before we started recording, we were talking about your leg fracture, and what about that? Tell me about that process of like dealing and recovering through that.
So that was like my first like really big injury.
Yeah.
So that was also like just shocking because it took me out of MMA.
I was trying to remember when that was. That was
2022.
Okay.
So the PFL was a promotion that I fought for. So they're only seasonal. Like the UFC is all year round, right?
Yeah.
So the PFL, they do like a season. And in this season, you fight like maybe 4 times and you have the chance to win $1 million. And that was going to be the first season I was in there.
Okay.
And I broke my leg literally like a month before.
Ugh.
So I was just like, couldn't believe like, oh my God, this is insane, right? Like, and it was just like a fluke thing too, like nothing.
Right.
That I was put in a position that I was in 1,000 times. It's not like this girl was like wrenching on my leg or anything.
Right.
She just like put some pressure in like with her abdomen and it just like snapped. And it felt like so easily it snapped.
Yeah.
So that's what like, freaked me out too. And then I'm in England. They're telling me a 6-week recovery, and I was having trouble dealing with that. And then I come back here. They're like, "Oh no, it's gonna be 6 to 8 months
I remember
recovery."
that.
And I was
know.
like, "What?"
I know.
Yes.
Isn't life funny though? The way I do remember. I remember being back in that room talking with you about this, and I remember thinking like life is funny though. How I feel like it almost most of the time it gives you information in the steps that you can take it.
Yeah,
It's almost like because you were out there, you were with your boyfriend. He went with you, right? You wanted to have a good time.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was like enough to like make you just get off your horse a little bit, but not enough to completely knock you.
Yeah. So it was like a second shock almost, but definitely like way worse. And then that recovery was hard because that was like depending on everybody, right? Like I'm so used to being like a go-getter, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't like to sit still. I'm up early. I'm already working out.
Yep.
I'm going to my next workout. Like
sit-ups and push-ups on commercials.
Yes. Exactly. So that was like the first time, like, because you're non-weight bearing.
Yeah.
I couldn't even go to my drawer to get clothes out without someone helping me.
Yeah.
And I remember going to my strength and conditioning coach after the surgery, like a week after, because I was like, I have to get moving, because
Right.
like I started getting like anxiety and depression, which I never had before.
Yeah.
Which was like a full shock to me, because like I used to like people would always be like, oh, I'm anxious, and I could never relate.
100%.
Right? And I'm like, man, I'll never talk crap about anxiety ever again after that.
I think exercise, man. I'm so glad you said that, because I think I'm the same way. Like we both run hot, Joey and Drew, Fuel Hunt guys, they're always like, JJ vibrates high. You know what I mean? I feel like you vibrate high. And I think, but I'm also so addicted to exercise. And I think that exercise just really maintains my levels. And
100%. Like I realized that after my leg break, I was like, oh my gosh, I rely on exercise for so much mentally.
Yeah.
And I can't believe people just go about their life not exercising.
Exactly. That's why I was glad you brought it up, because I feel like for people that are not already in the habit of exercising, it's such a great hack to controlling your mood stability.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I diverged a little bit from my original points, but I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's important.
Yeah. And I remember like literally going to strength and conditioning a week after, and I'm like depressed, I'm sad, I'm anxious, and I walked in and he did not acknowledge my leg at all.
I love it. I remember you saying
yes.
that.
And it was
he's like, let's go.
Yes. And he was like, sit down. I'll be over there in a second. And it was like the thing I needed from someone. Like just no one to like feel sorry for me.
Yeah.
Because like that was like the other thing too. Like I hated that everyone was feeling sorry for me.
Yep.
Because then it made me feel like pathetic.
Right.
Like,
it made you feel weak.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was just like the thing I needed. And then after I was starting to work out and feeling good, then he like, was like, so how you feeling? Well, and like we went about
Brilliant.
it. I know. And I'm like,
how long have you been working with him?
Since 2016. So I actually met him. The UFC has that show, The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
And Eddie Alvarez, he's a Philadelphia fighter.
Yeah.
He had a season that he was like the coach for that season, and it was a girl season. And I trained at the same gym that he was at, and they were like, "Oh, Amanda, you should come out with us like for a week, you know, because it's the girl season. You can like teach jiu-jitsu." I was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." So I got to like go out to Vegas for a week, and he was also Eddie Alvarez's strength and conditioning coach.
Got it.
So I met him out there, and it was like funny because like it was like an apartment style, like with the way they had it set up. So it was like 2 bedrooms. Me and him were like together.
So funny.
And his wife was like, I remember him telling me that he was with, and I was like, not even 21 at the time. And she's like, I remember him saying that he was with you. And she's like, I felt so bad because he's so boring. And it's not that he's like
Wait,
boring.
tell me his name again.
Rich Polar.
Okay.
So it's not even that he's boring. He's just very regimented.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's
just disciplined.
Yes,
and yeah.
so disciplined.
So cool.
So disciplined. And he's easily one of the best. Like, I've worked with a couple strength and conditioning coaches, and the knowledge he has, I love that he like stays up to date with knowledges. He'll still go to like, you know, like little seminars for things.
Yeah.
And
he has that same, it's funny that you say this, because this is what makes athletes like you amazing, is the continual like thirst for learning more and being more and doing more. And that's what I want to instill out of clinicians.
Yes.
And that's what your strength and conditioning
that's why I
high.
admire you. And that's why I love coming here, because I know I can trust you guys, because you guys are constantly looking for like the more information.
It's the same.
Yes.
I mean, we're literally like, our passion is the same. Our passion is like growth and excellence, and right. And it sounds like Rich is the same way.
Exactly.
That's so
yes.
cool.
And I'm like lucky, because jiu-jitsu has been such an avenue of finding these people who are so good at their craft of what they do.
Yeah.
And then it just makes me also just like gravitate towards them. Right. So
Yeah.
like, I will always like recommend people towards you, because I know what you guys are doing here, and
Sweet.
I love what you guys are doing here.
Thanks.
And then like same thing with Rich. Like, I love what he does. I love how disciplined he is. I love his programs. I will always send people to Rich, because I just the knowledge is just insane.
And he's living it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And it's not just like strength and conditioning stuff. It's like he'll do like functional movement stuff.
Yes.
And I love that too. And I'm like, so I don't feel like I'm ever just like lifting heavy and like it has no purpose.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. So I was actually going to ask you about like your things that you do for recovery, because other than the bad news about the aneurysm and the leg fracture, you've been, knock on wood, pretty healthy.
Yes.
Like haven't had a lot of injuries. And I was thinking about things I wanted to talk to you about on today's show. And I was thinking, well, recovery for sure. Like how do you, what advice do you give yourself, or what advice do you give others on recovery?
Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm feeling like crap, I won't do anything. Like,
Smart.
I'm like very like,
listen to your body.
I have no issue with taking a day off. Like, people are like, like if I feel like crap, I'm not going.
Smart.
Yeah. And you know, if I feel like if something's tweaked, again, I'm literally proactively seeking something out. So those 2 things are like key for me. I do the cold plunge and sauna. But that has been a more recent thing.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, it was just like knowing when to listen to your body and good sleep. Like, I'm big on getting sleep.
It's awesome.
And like, I have no problem leaving parties early. Like, I'm more of a morning person anyway, so I don't really like staying up late. And sleep has always been such a key for me. I never had issues with sleep, thank God.
Yeah.
So, you know, once I hit the pillow, I'm out. Like, so I think good sleep and like knowing when to take off, like it's nothing crazy. But
but it's consistency.
Yes.
It's like everything else, that like everything else in life that turns into something excellent is like the basics done well, right?
Yes,
like sleep is a basic thing.
Yep.
Eating is a basic thing. That's awesome. I love hearing that.
Which, like, even my jiu-jitsu game is like, I always say it's like so basic, and everyone's like, no, stop. I'm like, no, but it is.
Yeah.
And then Rob Shire from Precision, he'll always be like, it's basic, but like you're like still complex at the same time. But I'm like, my game's so basic. Like,
that's awesome.
I love the basics of everything. I'm just a simple.
It's smart.
Everything's
you can
simple
count
for
on
me.
them.
Yes, exactly.
I even like, I was telling to Amanda that I watched the Gabby Garcia fight again this morning, just in preparation. I'd watched it originally before, and sort of that epic fight. And I was thinking, like, you, even in that, like, you did you stuck to the basics, and you did them really well, and it paid off. And I hope we get to see more of that.
Yes, I do. So again, like, just basics, like, won that fight, right?
Yeah.
Like, and my dad like watches it all the time because obviously he's my dad too. And so I'm like, yeah, I watched a fight the other day again. But he's like, and I just can't believe like how like you just use like simple jiu-jitsu. He's like, it's literally the perfect demonstration of grappling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it really is.
And also, we talked a little bit about this before, but I want to say it for the benefit of the audience is like the other piece besides the technical jiu-jitsu, the basic technical jiu-jitsu in that match, I think the mindset in there is so incredible that you instilled. Like I was watching this fight again this morning and I was like, man, like the size difference that I noticed just from watching the screen, I was like, I'm a pretty confident, not easily scared person. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, I don't know how Amanda is being so composed. And I think this is where you're saying like maybe the MMA background.
Yeah, absolutely. So also though, I started working with a mindset coach a month before that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. So my first professional MMA fight was a month before.
Okay.
And then, so I did ADCC Worlds, which is like a big grappling tournament for the audience. I won the trials for that. I went to that.
And that was 2019,
yes,
right? Yeah.
And I competed like crap. And I was like to the point, I'm like, did I even show up? Like, it was just like such a bad.
Like, it was a
like,
fog.
I didn't feel, I didn't feel good warming up. Like, I went out there and just like competed like crap. And I'm like, that's weird. And then I just couldn't get on a groove, right? I was like stuck in this like weird, just couldn't get myself going in these competitions. And my boyfriend was like, can you please just talk to this mindset coach? Can you please just talk to this mindset coach? So I ended up talking to this mindset coach, and this is like 10 days before my, actually, no, it was actually sooner. So it was like the week before my fight.
Wow.
And they switched my opponent last minute. So everyone was like also semi-panicking that I was like,
Gonna panic? Yeah, I got it.
Because they were like, oh, your fight's called off. And again, I'm like upset because I've been waiting for this for so long.
Right.
And now you're going to tell me that I just had a full training camp, right? And training camps aren't easy.
Right.
You're training like 3 times a day. You're eating super clean.
Right. You're ready.
Yes. Everything you're doing is just for this,
culminating
15-minute match, right? So, they told me I don't have an opponent, so I'm like all upset. And then they're like, oh, we found an opponent. So then everyone's like nervous about my whole like headspace.
Yeah.
So I like end up talking to this mindset coach, and he gives me like these couple principles. And I kid you not, I literally like wish someone would have told me how to prep my mind before competitions when I was like a child.
That's so cool.
And yeah, so now like that I coach like every other Monday at this one school, and a lot of the kids competed, and I'm like teaching them
these so cool,
like little tricks that just help me when I'm about to compete.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want them to understand, it's so much more mental than most people believe it is. And I think now it's like that new wave of athletes is kicking in where, they're the ones seeking knowledge, and now they're starting to understand how much the mindset plays into
100%
grappling, competing, and anything.
And anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So like, again, just these little principles, like, like these mantras you say to yourself, and then basically just controlling your thoughts. Like the mindset guy, his name is Mike Moore. He was basically saying like, when you compete, you have to keep your thoughts, right? Like it's almost like driving, like keeping them in between the lines.
Yeah.
If you start to rear off,
smart, you're gonna hit a tree.
Yes, exactly. So yes, exactly. So steer your thoughts back into like the middle of the lane, like. You got to control where your thought processes are going.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's what I just started doing. Like, okay, I'll never say I'm nervous. I say I'm excited. I don't have to compete. I get to compete. Like, just those little things make such a difference that people don't even realize. And obviously, like, it's like buying into it, too. For, like, anything. Like, you have to believe in it.
Right.
So, and that's what I did. I just, like, fully absorbed into this. Like, whatever he was telling me, I was like, I am buying into this 1,000%.
Yeah.
And he was just saying, how he'll get like a lot of like top athletes who won't buy into the program, and how like it just like
doesn't work
for them. He was saying how like when people like absorb themselves into it, it works. And then I'm like, here I am. I won my.
I'm ready.
Just a couple principles. I won my MMA fight, and then I won the match against Gabby.
Yeah. It's funny because now that you say that, like I remember watching the fight then and now thinking like, wow, like you clearly, like you redirect I could almost see you staying, now that you put it in that perspective about staying in the lanes, I can see that. Mm-hmm. Like there were many times where you guys like veered off and then you just went right back to like, no, this is my plan, this is my road, and you finished it. That's so cool.
Yeah. And then like, even my first professional fight, one of my favorite practices he had me do was he had me write down all my fears. And then before we just say like the morning of my fight, he had me burn the paper.
Yes.
And when I burn the paper, I have to let all of that go, like let all the outcomes go and just get ready. And I was like, honestly, it was such a practice. Like it actually felt like so great.
It's like ritualistic.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, this is what tribes would do before big wars, right? Mm-hmm. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, so it's like one of my favorite like things that he recommended.
And so what's the cadence of working with someone like that? Like for you, how does that?
So basically, he would talk to me once a week.
Yeah.
Leading up to like whatever. I don't work with him now. Just because like I was injured and then I just got like we still are in touch and stuff. We talk. But for the most part, like I feel like I have like pretty much all the principles down to begin with.
Yeah. It's kind of like PT.
Confident. Yes.
Like we give, like there are times where you have to come once a week, whatever, and we're giving you, and we're like, okay, you're doing that exercise. You look good with that exercise. Let's give you this one. And then at some point, you're doing these on your own, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So I would work with him once a week, and he would just like talk me through it. We would talk about like what I'm nervous for, what am I prepping for. And then again, like another practice he had me do was just like comparing my worst fight to my best fight, right? And how I was feeling during my best fight, how I was feeling during my worst fight, what I was thinking beforehand, where I was in my life, and just like the stark differences are pretty insane when you like actually write it down in paper. Like I couldn't even believe how different they were. Yeah.
How much it just put a scope on it, right?
Yes. So that was such a cool practice. But yeah, so I would just work with him once a week leading up to a match, and it would just definitely, help
make
me
a
get
difference.
ready. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, guys, this has been awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda. I think for the clinicians listening, I think you can take so many of the principles that Amanda uses to excel in her sport and craft and in life and apply it to your business or apply it to working with your patients. I do one last question for you. If for the clinicians, is there any other are there any advice you could give clinicians who want to excel themselves in working with high-level athletes like you? Like anything that comes to mind in terms of just their own success as a clinician?
I think the way you guys go about being super supportive and like immersing yourself into these different like sports. Like I feel like you guys are like in the like the way you guys injected yourself into like the jiu-jitsu community, right? Like I know so many jiu-jitsu people that come to you guys now.
Yeah.
I love that you guys are just like so supportive. You guys, support the athletes on Instagram. And I just love the way that you guys go about that for sure.
Thanks.
And I would probably say, honestly, the way you guys keep your knowledge is admirable, especially to an athlete who is very good at their craft. Watching you guys do your craft, it's just like real recognizes real. Almost,
yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
thanks, Amanda.
That's another key for me.
Well, thank you. I like I said, it's mutual, and I think what that highlights to me, if you want to get into working with jiu-jitsu athletes, I mean, I think what it comes down to is like we are immersed in that community because we do love that community. Like we have a passion for that, and I would say, echoing what Amanda just said, is like whatever your passion is, be true to that as clinicians, and I think that that's going to come out in your work. And so, don't chase after what seems shiny because you think it's going to, bring in numbers. Chase after what you truly love, and it'll show in your work. And I think you'll be successful at it. So that's my advice, echoing what Amanda said. And thank you so much. I look forward to watching you more.
Thank you.
And good luck at West Coast Trials. And I hope to see you at Worlds.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks again, guys. Tune in for more episodes and more great athletes like Amanda. And don't miss our clinical rounds as well. Don't forget to hit subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of our clinical advice either. Take care.